to this open Zoom meeting with Gedaliah Blum, speaking to us directly from the hills of Samaria. Gedaliah, we are here to listen to you, not to listen to me. So please, you have the mic.
All right, well, I'll say something before I start. I'll say that when I speak with my wife, sometimes she interrupts me and I say, let me speak, you're interrupting me. She's like, but I'm only interrupting you because I think what you're saying is important and I want to join in. So I want to invite everybody to take her advice and at any point jump in, because it's, I would much rather be in person with everybody here, but because of the technology separations, I really invite a lot of cutting in and questions and whatever it is, but so feel free.
I understand you don't know the MIFF audience yet.
I didn't want to make anybody feel uncomfortable, so now that you know that you could do it, now it's much more freer. No, but I do want to thank everybody for joining. I mean, this is really a huge honor for me. I've had Bjarta come and stay at my home, and we don't bite, so I want to invite everybody also. Whenever COVID stops and we have more guests, please come. I think it's really, really important. And I'm really overwhelmed by the amount of support that we're getting from your organization. The fact that there's over 10,000 people who are actively supporting Israel in one way or the other is something that we only wish could be duplicated throughout the world. Because if so, I think that we would all find ourselves in the position of probably being out of work or not actively involved, because there would be no need to. Which comes to our position. I think what we all have in common is that our love, our love for the Bible, our love for a moral code, our love for morality, and our love for where it kind of was birthed, was here, where I'm sitting in what we call the original Bible Belt, where the Bible took place. And it's under attack. And as everybody knows, it's under attack. It's under attack by these, cynical players who want to erase not just the Jewish people, but they want to erase our heritage, the joint heritage between Jews, Christians, and even Muslims. It's in the Bible, it's in the Quran that the Jewish people are connected to this land, and we are fighting a war that I think that the world believes to be a political war. For those who live here, understand that it's much more than a political war. People aren't blowing themselves up and killing Jews, knowing full well that they're going to die for political reasons. They're doing it for religious reasons. And so there's actually this very dark period that is coming out again, that is about the jihadi wars of old that we think that used to happen, and that we're in the year 2020, we're civilized now. Why would anybody in their right mind, believe that a God in this world would want them to die in order to kill other people? It's completely crazy. But that's the way they think, and we have to kind of face that fact, and we have to understand that our fight here for the Jewish people in Judea, our fight is not just our own fight, it's our fight. We may be on the front lines, and we're seeing that the war against these codes, these moral codes, this culture, is no longer just in Israel. And we're seeing other countries, especially in Europe, kind of waking up to this reality, not knowing, even today, that there's actually a connection between what's going on, let's say, in France and what's going on in the occupied West Bank. But for those living here and those experiencing the culture of these villains, we see it's the same thing. And so we're very happy to see that we have somebody who get it, who's supporting us here, and understands that our Bible is your Bible. It's our moral code is your moral code, and where everything comes together in this land of Israel is where the real battlefield is for our culture. And there's a narrative. Everybody knows there's a narrative. I know that, you know, Beata, your organization, Conrad, you're fighting the narrative of the quote unquote occupation, that for some reason the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movements, the UN sanctions, the EU labeling of Jewish products, in their minds is some sort of moral stance that they're taking in order to protect certain people. But what they don't realize, and maybe they don't see it, they don't put it together, but you know, the Jewish people have a long history of being targeted. And when they label our products, we remember what the Nazi Germany did when they were labeling our products, just like we just commemorated the 70 some odd anniversary of the Night of Broken Glass in Germany. We remember. We still have survivors from there who remind us every day, and it's in our DNA to remember when we are being targeted unjustly, and by those who are seeking some sort of moral high ground to attack us. And this is when, as you understand probably, that this whole reality is completely flipped upside down. And so, you know, it's really interesting. We could sit here and be dejected and depressed and feel complete helplessness. But that's not what we're about. We, as Jewish people, we didn't come back to the land to drain the swamps and build one of the most successful countries in the world just to kind of walk away in the face of opposition. But in fact, I think it's this opposition that actually triggers us, that gets us moving even more so forward, and creates a much more determined people. And but it's nice to know we're not alone. You know, we're not alone. I mean, I'm sitting here with dozens of friends that in a normal situation would have nothing to do with a small nation of people who are living in a very small plot of land. But we have our souls are connected, and you know, just like when something bad happens in Norway, we feel it, and something bad happens here, I know that you feel it, because I really believe that we're brothers and sisters, and we need to continue to take these actions and to strengthen each other in order to unite and to make sure that these villains that are out against us become disarmed and become inconsequential. And so I think that overall, I mean, that's why we've actually been seeing, like, the PDS and the UN and the EU sanctions, everything against us, that these are actually a product of our lack of resolve. And I don't mean our personal lack of resolve, because I don't question anybody's resolve here, but I think as from a global community. And I'll tell you what, honestly, most of the Jewish people, especially in America, are apathetic to it. They're not taking action to it. And this is what emboldens our enemies, is our lack of real grassroots, on the ground action against them. Because as everybody learned from their parent back in 2nd grade, that there are bullies. There are bullies, and unless you stand up to them, they're going to be emboldened, and they're going to keep doing it, and they're going to feel that they have the freedom to continue to act in the way that they're acting. But once somebody punches them in the nose, that's what happens. They run away. And I think that's the way that we are going to be strengthened and to be able to make these players irrelevant by uniting and actually being strong and taking action. And so that's why I think overall there's so many different ways to fight these cynical players. There's you know, political, political, through the political realm. There's Hezbollah. There's responding. But we took the angle of something that in my mind, in my heart, is really something that's the most measurable, the most impactful, and that's through economic Zionism. And economic Zionism is one of those things where it just makes sense. When you are when you're able to empower people on the ground, not empowering the politicians, not empowering the local, municipalities. I'm talking about the people on the ground who are having children, who are sending their kids to school, who are going to work, who are going grocery shopping, who are building a house, who are business owners, who are hiring people. This is where the real change in my mind really is going to take shape. Yes, there might be a political solution that might happen overnight. Yes, there might be, newspapers who might all of a sudden be, challenged and say, you know what, Gedaliah, you're right. We didn't realize that we've been lying about the whole Arab-Israeli conflict for the last ever. But it's probably not going to happen. And we know this conflict is something that is not going to just go away on its own. And so we're all about like peace through strength. That if we are strong, and the people who are given the strength, who are built the strength, who do have a root in the Bible, that do have a root in moral codes, in civil liberties, in freedoms, then it's really good for everybody. There's no zero-sum game. If you give the power to, let's say, the jihadis, Mahmoud Abbas or Hamas, then their power is going to be used not to protect everybody that they're underneath, but to suppress them. And so that's where we really took the opportunity to say, you know what? Economic Zionism is probably the most effective measures that one could take when fighting for the truth, fighting for our connection to the land of Israel, fighting for our connection to the Bible, fighting for the connection to the Jewish people. And so this all started really 12 years ago. But so far, no one interrupted me yet, so I'm going to keep going. Feel free to interrupt. This started 12 years ago. The BDS came onto the global stage, supported by cynical players like the EU and the UN and a lot of the jihadis, the Arab states. And they were calling to boycott the Jewish-owned businesses from Judea and Samaria. So my wife and I were like, this isn't nice. They're boycotting, they're targeting my children. They're targeting my neighbors. They're targeting my friends. And like, I don't know if you know what it feels like to be targeted in this way. It's like, I'm not going to say I felt like a victim, but I'm standing there like, there's so much energy being harnessed and targeting such a small 500,000 people in the world. 500,000 people in the whole world. That's like a small city in any big country. We're being targeted while real human rights abusers in this world are walking around free. I'll give you an example. I mean, just yesterday or 2 days ago, 50 people were publicly beheaded by Islamists in Mozambique, and it wasn't reported in the mainstream media. It wasn't reported in the mainstream media. What was reported in the mainstream media was Palestinian village was demolished by Israeli occupying forces. The real story, it was a Palestinian tent was erected, a fabric tent was erected on land that was within a closed military base, like a shooting range, since like 1972. And the army came and said, you're crazy, we're gonna shoot you, we're doing exercises, you need to leave. They said no, so they took the tent and they pulled it out. And this made world news, that all of a sudden we were the occupiers. Again, it's the narrative. So while we're being targeted, I'm thinking, are we really the victims? Are we really the victims of the targeted attacks by the international community, calling us occupiers and calling us human rights abusers? And I'm thinking, yeah, we are victims, but who are the real victims? The victims are the 50 people who are now dead because they were beheaded because nobody cares about them. There's no accountability, there's no press, there's nothing. That's the press, that's the job of the press, is to make people accountable. And they're not doing their job. And the real victims are the real victims of human rights abuses. And so, it's really it really makes this situation a lot more, I think, heavy, a lot more serious than just, the Jewish people belong in Judea and Samaria, and they have rights to be living here, and we have to fight for their rights. Fighting for Israeli rights in Judea and Samaria, and fighting for Israel in general, is not just about your connection to Israel. It's not just about me living here and my children and my friends and my neighbors and everybody. If the narrative is broken here about human rights abuses, just maybe perhaps, even for a second, that the world's attention could actually be focused on the real victims, the real people who are helpless against the real villains of this world. And I really truly believe that the biggest sin of our lifetime is ignoring. We say never again. The Jewish people say never again about the Holocaust. But the never again is it for everybody? Is it for the whole world? Is it for the 50 people yesterday who were murdered? Is it for the ethnic cleansing that happened in Sudan, Ethiopia, all these different places? Is it about the ISIS in Syria? Is it about Assad, who wiped out 600,000 of his own people, and not a word? But the whole world goes crazy when America moves the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, from respects Israeli sovereignty over the Golan. So as you can see, I'm very this is very emotional for me, because it's not something that I just read about. It's something I live. And when I see victims around the world, I think that I'm responsible in a way. I'm not responsible in their victimhood. I'm responsible because I see why they are continue to be a victim, because the world's attention is unfortunately drawn here instead of there. And so this comes back to, okay, so what do we do? What am I doing here on the ground? And it seems very, again, after talking about all that other stuff, it seems very inconsequential. We're talking about now business owners, right? Business owners. Okay, you have a shoe store. What does a shoe store have anything to do with people who are being, the genocide in Africa? And it has everything to do with it, I think. It has to do with, because the reason why we promote businesses in Judea and Samaria, by the way, we promote over 3,000 businesses in Judea and Samaria through our online platform. We have a directory. We also create websites and e-commerce tools, solutions for them. Since we started 12 years ago, we estimated tens of millions of dollars have been generated through our networks to these small businesses into their pockets. And these people are really the modern day pioneers of Israel. They're part of the reestablishment of the Jewish people in our ancestral homeland, and they are the soldiers on the ground who are strengthening our position here, in order that we could have, like Ronald Reagan was a big firm believer of, peace through strength. If we have the strength, if we have the leverage, if we're even employing, we have code systems, we have factories, we're employing Arabs. 300,000 Palestinians are being supported today. within Judea and Samaria by Israeli-owned businesses. We need to grow that. And by growing that is to focus on the small businesses so they could grow and they could continue to invest and they could continue to hire people. People continue to build and they could continue to really create this ecosystem where it doesn't make any sense for these Palestinian Arabs to follow the lead of the Palestinian Authority who don't care about their own families. But instead, it's about creating a future that we saw in Israel proper. 20% of our population are Arab Muslims. And, you know, are things perfect? No, they're not perfect, but they're living the best any Arab lives in the whole Middle East. By far. We're looking to expand that. Now, our movement to focus on businesses in Judea and Samaria is not about coexistence. That's a product of it. Our focus is to make sure that we change the facts on the ground every single day. Every day we're building. Every time that a business owner in Judea and Samaria is closing a deal with a customer, that's one more brick in the wall. That's one more brick of building in Judea and Samaria. And so, you know, that's our focus with economic Zionism, is to really focus on this aspect of the whole war. It's not saying that we're going to fix everything on one side, but it's like we have a goal. It's like the top of a diamond, and each side of the diamond has its own way to get there, and we can all interact with each other and collaborate with each other. But this is our focus. This is our focus. And I'll tell you what, though, the last year has been very difficult. Although we've been growing year after year, we've been expanding. We're seeing businesses hire more people. We're growing. It all ended with COVID. It's like all of a sudden, overnight, it was just like done. It like caught everybody off guard. I don't have to explain it to you. The whole world is experiencing this, and many of the business owners that we work with were forced to close their doors. And by the way, something BDS is celebrating, because as we know, those anti-Israel people, they're like suicide bombers. They'll sacrifice themselves and all of their family in order, as long as the Jews are targeted, you know. So they're celebrating. BDS is celebrating because we're devastated. We're very devastated. Even though we open and we close, businesses are at this point just trying to get through it, just trying to survive. And you know, most of the businesses that we work with that were forced to close their doors, they don't have e-commerce websites. They're not able to sell online. They don't sell online. They never needed to. They never thought there was a need to. A lot of them didn't even have websites. And so we stepped in. We stepped in and we are helping subsidize the development of e-commerce websites. So these businesses who are employing people, who are creating things, who are supporting their families, supporting other people's families through their company, we're enabling them when they had their physical doors forcibly closed by the government. We're there to be a partner with them to open up their virtual doors. So it's funny because in the end, a lot of them are doing better, believe it or not, because they were so worried about foot traffic all the time. They were sitting there waiting for foot traffic, and they're advertising here, they're advertising flyers, they're coming in, and then COVID hit, and they're like, there's no more foot traffic. Now I need to move from 1990 to 2020. How are people operating their business today? How are they generating revenue so they can continue to grow and to thrive and to employ people and do all these things? And it's very simple. You know, e-commerce websites. This is how people are going to keep their doors open. And in fact, next week, we've actually identified a number of some of the hardest hit businesses A lot of them work in the gift shops for tourism and things like that. And a lot of them were so devastated by COVID. It's not like they have a savings, or not like the banks were open that they could get a loan to bridge past all this devastation. So we are running, actually next week, we're actually running a campaign to help 50 businesses create an online shop and also promote it, so they could get some breathing space again. They could kind of like the stress of not paying their bills and rent and their employees and everything it's very heavy on their hearts right now, and they don't know what to do. So next week we're actually running a campaign in order to help the most hard hit 50 businesses at the same time. I mean, we have a system where we could really do a really good job. And you know, at the end of the day, it's not about giving them anything. It's not about giving them a fish. It's about providing them with the tools, like giving them a fishing pole, and not even giving to them, like going halfway with them. You know, not to give anything away for free. Listen, they're still a business, and I mean, they're entrepreneurial. They take risks. They know what they were getting into. But this is kind of like you know, they got hit in the back of the head with this COVID. And so this campaign is about partnering with them and making sure that they're able to realize that they're not alone and they can get out of it, and they have a partner with it. And so, yeah, so these are the, you know, again, we have to arm our modern day pioneers. I mean, these people are the ones that are facing this economic warfare that was brought upon them. I mean, these business owners, I don't know if anybody has a business here, but there's tremendous challenges anyway. Now you have the normal challenges of running a business, of making payroll and getting inventory and getting new customers and all these different things. And now you have the political problems of BDS and EU labeling and all these different things. And then you have COVID. But like I said, I mean, we didn't come back to the land of Israel, and specifically, we didn't come to the original Bible Belt, the center of where Jewish life was, why we're coming back and reestablishing our Jewish life here in ancestral homeland. We didn't come back here so we could just face a challenge and walk away. I mean, these are some of the toughest people. I mean, these people are dreamers. These people are visionaries, and they see there's a blank canvas, and they decided to pick up the paintbrush and to paint their own story. I mean, this is, you know, not just for themselves, for their children, for their children's children, for their future generations, for you. Because, I mean, as we see throughout the Middle East, one second, but at least he said, I'm sorry, there was a disnote there. As you see around the Middle East, there's a lot of holy sites that are inaccessible to people around the world, and we have to make sure that strengthening Judea and Samaria is not just about us. It's not just about strengthening us. It's not even against people. It's for freedom. It's for people who love the Bible to be able to come and to see and to experience it in the one place where the Bible actually lives and breathes. I mean, you can't pick up a Bible and read it without being in awe. I mean, for those who were with us before we actually started, I went outside and I showed the night skyline of the lights and of Shechem, where Joseph was buried, where Joseph actually went and walked in these hills right here to go check up on his brothers before they threw him in a pit, and he was sold to slavery to go to Egypt, and he actually came back and he was buried not far from actually where the pit was, that he was put in a pit. I mean, this is where you read, you're just like, ah. And the doors are only open to experience this if the Jewish people actually strong. We're strong here. And so, you know, we know what BDS is about. BDS is about destroying Israel overall. We know what the jihadis are about. They're about erasing the Jewish connection, the Bible connection to this land. And they've failed throughout the years. They try to beat us in war. They try to beat us in terror. And they try to beat us in political action. And one after the other, every time that they lose, they go to the next one. So right now they are losing the battle for BDS. Because what we found out was when we said, okay, we're going to promote 3,000 businesses in Judea and Samaria, we got some pushback. Well, you're creating a list of businesses. BDS is just going to take it and say, Gedaliah, thank you so much for doing our work. And now we can go throughout the world and tell everybody, these are the businesses that you could actually boycott and you could target, and we'll be better off for it. But what we learned was this. We took a risk. I didn't think that was going to happen, even though they did take our list and they do use it, but that's besides the point. My assumption was that there is a silent majority of people who support the Jewish people, who support the reestablishment of the Jewish people in our ancestral homeland, who reject the anti-Semitic, racist, targeted, cynical organizations like BDS. They reject them, but they didn't have a call to action. They didn't have a voice. BDS, you know what BDS is? BDS is a banner. It's a call to action for all the existing anti-Semites and jihadis to march on. That's all it is. They didn't grow throughout the years. They didn't grow in numbers. In fact, there was actually a Pew research study back in 2006 in America asking people what they thought, younger people, what they thought about BDS. And 26% of the people were in favor of it in 2006. In 2016, that number, you would think after 10 years of BDS action, it would grow. It shrunk. It shrunk to 24%. 24%. They lost support throughout their mission. But where they did succeed was bringing everybody together who were anti-Semites and jihadis under one banner, and they gave them a call to action. And that's exactly what we are about. That's exactly what economic Zionism is all about. Economic Zionism is about creating a call to action, saying support the creation of the infrastructure needed to empower the people here, not to just buy a product. Buying Israeli products is great, and I definitely support anybody, and I encourage everybody to buy Israeli products. I'm talking about infrastructure. I'm talking about helping people build e-commerce websites. I'm talking about helping and taking part in our mission in building infrastructure and increasing the number of businesses being promoted from 3,000 to 6,000, making sure that every single business owner has the tools that they need in order to succeed. Because at the end of the day, like, what's my ultimate goal? My ultimate goal is not really focused on the businesses. The businesses are just a vehicle. They're a necessary vehicle in order to get to the goal. But my ultimate goal, my vision, is to be so strong, that our enemies become pacified into following the rule of law, respecting civil liberties, and actually being part of the miraculous story that is being told right now, that's being written right now, of the Jewish people returning to ancestral homeland and creating this umbrella of peace, of human rights. I mean, this is my ultimate goal. I would love to see the flag, the Israeli flag, covering not only Israel, but the whole Middle East. values of, of, of human dignity and rights to be given when a prime minister could be indicted for a crime of taking cigars as a gift, while the Muslim leaders around the world are laughing as they're funneling international aid to their Swiss bank accounts.
Gedaliah?
Yeah.
Sorry, your sound was kind of breaking up in a funny way. Maybe you should try to mute and then unmute again.
Okay.
And then we want to open it up for questions as well. So could you give us an overview of how much financial cooperation there is between the Palestinians living in the West Bank and the Israeli people living there?
Okay, so that's how's my sound? Is it okay?
Still not the best, but we have to go on.
Okay, sorry about that. Let me try a microphone 1 second.
It's better now.
Okay, it's better now. Okay, so our focus is not necessarily about cooperation. There are industrial centers where Israeli companies are based, where they have a majority of their employees Palestinian Arabs. Our focus is to build and expand the Jewish aspect of life.
You should try that microphone after all, because it's going up on and off. Hvis det noen av dere som har spørsmål, så kan dere rekke opp hånda, bruke rekke opp hånda-funksjonen i Zoom, eller dere kan skrive i chatten. Eller hvis dere har kamera på, så kan dere også bare unmute dere selv, og så skal jeg gi dere ordet. Bjarte, you have a question. Go on.
Okay. How strong will you say the BDS movement is, and how much can they hurt the businesses in Judea and Samaria? We all remember how much pressure they put on, like SodaStream when they were there.
So, you know, is my sound better now with the microphone?
Yes.
Okay, great. So it's actually interesting. Like I said, there's a silent majority of people who support us being here, and the silent and the loud minority of people are supporting BDS. And although I think BDS is something that requires us to respond to and to put them down, I think that the best way is to ignore them and to focus our energies not on responding to them, but on building and helping support the economic infrastructure in this, and individual business owners whom they seek to destroy. And at some point in time, as we continue to do that, I believe that the BDS movement will realize that it's a fight that they're never able to beat. And so that's really our focus. Our focus is about moving forward. It's about positivity and investing in what works and what is going to grow, instead of focusing on the cynical players who are just really, they're just a bunch of static. If anything, we're using them in order to get motivated and to realize that, you know what, we need to be doing more. We need to be as enthusiastic, if not half as enthusiastic as the BDS movement. If we were half as enthusiastic about building our economy as the BDS was about destroying it, we would be miles ahead of anybody right now.
I can have another question. If people in Norway want to support businesses in the Judea and Samaria, is there any possibilities to buy goods directly from the businesses?
So it's interesting. At this point right now, we have a very small number of businesses who sell direct internationally, and that's part of our program. Whereas, again, we're building infrastructure. So as an individual business owner, especially right now during COVID, it's very costly to invest in a platform and any kind of shipping and you know, all the logistics that go into into doing international business. So what we're doing right now is building the infrastructure as a group, because I think that only when we're together that we're able to actually lower the costs of a lot of these expenses, like shipping and production and accounting and development of technology and everything. If we could bring it all down by creating a center, and we're the center of everything right now, commercial in Judea and Samaria for Jewish businesses. If we could move forward from this campaign that we're doing, that we're launching next week, to build 50 e-commerce websites, we do want to, in the next 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, to have these websites translated, promoted, marketed, and having the infrastructure that is going to allow people to purchase products from Judea and Samaria, not for charity, not because it's a good thing to do, but I mean, also it's a good thing to do, but that that there's good value and there's a good product. And I think that's where we're looking to go. We're not looking to be in this space of you should buy from Judea and Samaria because we're weak and you need to give us money in order. No, we need fishing poles. And when we get our fishing poles, we'll catch the fish. We'll be able to cut it up. We'll be able to eat it. And we'll also be able to package it up, and we'll be able to send it off to Norway at a good price. So every time that you're buying a product from Judea and Samaria, you don't have to think like, oh, how long can I keep this up? At some point, a lot of these programs, and I value what they do, and I'm friends with people who are spearheading a lot of these programs, but it's not sustainable for most people. It's expensive and it's ongoing. We need to lower the cost, and only the way to do that is by investing into the infrastructure. And I think eventually, this isn't a solution that's going to bear fruit in a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks. I mean, we're in this for the long haul. We've been out of this land for 2,000 years. I think that we could spend another 3, 4, 5 years into really focusing on building the infrastructure until we're actually able to say, you know what, we did it. We're doing it. This is it. And I was part of this years ago when it was just kind of like a concept. And so that's what we're looking for. So if anybody wants to buy product from Judea and Samaria, I would say go for it, but not through us. We're looking for real, on the ground, impactful, long-lasting, real solutions. And the real solutions are going to come from, again, the uniting around building these really important tools.
I have one final question. I'm just wondering, you read, if you follow the Israeli news, you hear about terror attacks in Judea and Samaria almost like every week at least. So you have lost friends to Palestinian terror attacks yourself, and I'm just wondering how this affect your life in this area.
So I often question whether or not my love and my passion for Judea and Samaria would be so strong without them. Without the passion and the enthusiasm, for lack of better words, of the jihadis coming after us, after my friends, after my brothers and sisters and children. It's hard. And I try to put in perspective that I think that, again, us being attacked is a reflection on our inability to stand up to the bullies. And I think that there's a solution to it. So I'm very, very, very optimistic that the stronger the Jewish people are, these villains would go away, or at least they'll be too scared to act. Yeah, I mean, I've had a very good friend and colleague, Ari Fold, who was murdered over 2 years ago, and He actually was somebody who lived and died for the people of Israel and the land of Israel. Who, to be honest with you, since he was killed, it kind of put a fire under me to say, Ari's not around anymore to fight for everybody. We need to fight. We need to use our voices. You know, we all need to come together and unite around these issues. And we can't allow these bullies to be emboldened to, you know, they can't allow our access to this holy land to be cut off. You know, it's that simple. And so yeah, I don't look at the terror against us as a reflection of their hate per se. I look at it as more of a reflection of our opportunity to do more. Because if they're able to attack us, that means that we're not doing everything that we should be doing.
Yes, now it's on. Any other questions? This is a good opportunity when we have a real Israeli settler. You know, in Norway, we hear that you are a war criminal. What would you like if you asked some mainstream or left-wing politicians in Norway? You will be considered a war criminal.
I would hold up the picture of the 50 people in Mozambique who were beheaded, and put that next to me and my children in my house and the beautiful view here, and the pottery shards that are just a few centimeters under the soil, and the coins that represent our long-lasting connection to this land. You know, I'll tell you what, there was I don't know if anybody saw this, but there was a TV show that was done and broadcasted in Denmark about me and my family. It was translated into Norwegian. I think it played in, you know, your TV there. And this woman who was living with us for 2 days with the camera person, and you know, that was the idea. She'd move in with us and she'd hear a story. At the end of the experience, I asked her off camera. I asked her what, you know, she's a reporter, by the way. She's not just somebody off the street. She is a reporter who actually lives in Cairo. And I asked her, I'm like, what was the one thing that you didn't realize that you do now? What's one thing that you learn now? And I was overwhelmed and completely surprised by what she said. And she said this. She said, I didn't understand the connection between the Jewish people and this land. Mm-hmm. It was insane. I mean, that's our fault. That's my fault. You know, that's my fault. I mean, I shouldn't expect the world to be fighting, you know, for the truth for me. And that just kind of triggered me. Like, we have a lot of work to do. I mean, this is crazy. And so, yeah, so people who think I'm a war criminal, you know, they're the same people who aren't reporting the real war criminals, and they're the ones with blood on their hands. If you ask me, not directly, of course.
So if anyone in the audience want to raise a question to Gedaliah, you are welcome to turn on your camera and unmute yourself. We have still 8 minutes more. What I sometimes wonder, I think there are a big difference between the different Palestinian villages in the West Bank's attitude to their Jewish neighbors, or is it divided by clans, and clans live in mixed in the same villages, or does a clan, do the clans, the Palestinian clans in the West Bank live in the same villages? And how does every Jewish man and woman who lives there, they are trained from they are young to know who are more friendly than others, or?
I'll tell you what, for me to say that all Palestinian Arabs are terror, bloodthirsty people, that's a complete, that would never, I don't believe that. I don't think anybody who says that is being truthful. That's clearly not the truth. But it's, would you swallow one pill out of 100 that's going to poison you? And the answer is, of course, you're not going to do that. And so there is a sense of fear, there's a sense of fear. There's a sense of fear. So it actually creates this separation, unless, of course, you're in one of these factories and then you work together every day and you break, the trust the trust is being built. But then one day you'll hear a story about one of the workers goes and kills his boss after 20 years of working for him. And then you realize why. It's because, well, his uncle died and he has another family to take care of, and his salary's not high enough. So the Palestinian Authority, if he kills somebody, he'll go to prison, but then he'll get a salary from the Palestinian Authority. So you hear things like that. But I'll tell you what, this is very, very interesting. Now, I'm not an expert about this. This requires a lot more research, and I'm certainly not going to be able to explain it in a couple of minutes. But I'll tell you, in the southern Judean region by Hebron, there are a number of Palestinian villages that have been known through genealogists and historians and anthropologists who are able to identify a lot of these clans as being originally Jewish and who have been forcibly converted during the Islamic what's it called? Conquests. And these people somehow, and it makes sense in a very dark, twisted way, are the most dangerous to the Jewish people, because for their own society, they are still seen as converts who have to prove themselves to society that says that no, they're not a Jew. So there's a lot of terror coming from those places. But there are also, I have a very close friend, Yishai Fleischer, who is the spokesperson he's the international spokesperson for the community of Hebron, who has very great relations, very wonderful relations with a number of clans of Arabs in Hebron. And these clans are essentially enemies of Hamas, who runs Hebron and the Palestinian Authority. They're enemies. And the reason why they're able to exist outwardly and openly as an enemy of Hamas and the PLO without threat of being arrested and tortured is because this clan has their own army. They have their own army. And so I think that from me, a very cynical point of view, maybe, I'm not as optimistic as my friend Yishai is about the relationship, but I would venture to say that they are looking at Israel as a solution to rid their region of the Palestinian Authority and of Hamas, in order that a friend of Yishai Fleischer, a friend who has a clan and an army, could eventually take over and take power of the region. And then from there, who knows whether or not they're going to maintain our close friendly ties. That remains to be seen.
Yeah.
But they say an enemy of an enemy is a friend, so that becomes a consideration in my mind. But
I see. I don't see any other questions. It's 1 minute till the end of our meeting. What what encouragement do you want to leave us with?
That's great. Well, number one, stay in touch with me. Write to me, Conrad, or Beata. Hopefully, you could send my contact information. We need to build better ties with people on the ground. You're a grassroots organization. We're grassroots. I'm very connected with a lot of other grassroots. That's where real impact is going to happen, from the ground up, not from the top down. It's from people who are doing it out of love, not out of interests. And I think that's where we need to focus. We need to unite around these issues, like I said before. And we need to continue to take action. We need to do things that are measurable. We need to do things that, we can look a year later and say, we built that. We were part of that. And I think that's the most important thing in a world where clicks and attitudes and everything aren't really measurable, and you really can't create any real measurable impact from it. I think that my encouragement is to unite and to make sure that every single thing that we do is you're able to measure impact. I mean, that's how we're going to be able to move the needle, and we're going to see again the continued reestablishment, the redemption of this land, for all of us. And so that's my encouragement. And
yeah, thanks. So MIFF is a pro-Israel organization, but we are a broad Friends of Israel grassroots movements, both of members from Denmark and Iceland. They are represented also in the audience, but our core is in Norway, where we were started in 1978. But since we are a broad movement, it's open for every supporter of Israel, not only those who are diehard settler fans, but also those who support left-wing movements within Israel, but still are Zionists and support the Jewish people's right to a homeland. So we try to work with the issues where there is a broad consensus within Israel. But our perspective is not to bring our own voices, but bring the Israeli voices to Norway. And next week we will have another Zoom meeting with this. I'll share my screen now. Hopefully you will see it. Major General Gershon Hakohen. He will explain why Jerusalem and Area C of the West Bank is so vital for Israel's security. So we'll continue this theme also the next week. Litraot, Gedaliah. I will give a short announcement in Norwegian, and then we will close the meeting. Thanks a lot for joining us, and receive our applause.
Thank you. And please, if anybody was shy in asking questions, please, send me emails, ask me questions. Let's stay connected. Whether you're left wing or right wing, I believe that what I'm doing is actually a very liberal mission. So that's something that we could discuss in the future.
Sure. Thanks. Bye.
Take care.
Så til alle dere som har vært med oss i dag, tusen takk for at dere kom. Hjertelig velkommen tilbake neste onsdag, samme tid, klokken 18. Da får vi altså generalmajor Gershon Hakohen inn. Han er en av Israels fremste sikkerhetseksperter og kan se tilbake på en lang karriere med en rekke toppstillinger i det israelske forsvaret. Hakohen er utdannet i filosofi og litteratur ved det hebraiske universitetet, og nå er han seniorforsker ved Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies. Hakohen er en av de israelske sikkerhetsakademikerne som jeg har gjengitt flere ganger i mine artikler på MIFF.no, og det er veldig flott at vi kan få han nå med oss i dette Zoom-møtet neste onsdag. Så det ser vi frem til. Inviter gjerne med noen venner og familie, så ønsker jeg dere en nydelig kveld. Ha det bra.